In this question, we're told that the machine pours 250 milliliters of juice every 4 seconds. And we want to know how many liters it pours after 1 minute. So 1 minute. How many liters of juice has it poured? And we know 1 minute is equivalent to or equal to 60 seconds. Now another thing I want you to know is that 1 liter is equal to 1000 milliliters. And ml is short for milliliters. So let me just write this down. If I want to go from a liter to a milliliter, from 1 to 1000, I simply multiply by 1000. And if I want to go backwards, I divide by 1000. So our first step is to find out how many lots of 4 seconds we have in 1 minute. So what we do is we do 60 seconds divided by 4. And I like to write this as 60 over 4 because I can use the bus shelter method. It's raining and the 60 is getting wet, so what we'll do is we'll build a bus shelter. Now because that's getting wet, we put it inside to keep it dry. And the 4 has to go outside. Now how many 4s are there in 6? There's 1, remainder 2, so the remainder gets carried over to the next column. So let me show you how that worked. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many groups of 4 are there? That's one group of 4. So the 1 goes there, and I have a remainder of 2, and the 2 gets carried over. Now, how many 4s are there in 20? Now this is where you need to know your times tables. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So how many 4s are there in 20? There's 5. So our answer is 15. So we know that there's 15 lots of 250 milliliters that the machine pours out every minute. So we need to do 15 lots of 250. Now I'm going to do this using the grid method. I'm going to put 15 down here, but I will first partition it or split it up. So there's one lot of 10, and there's 5 ones or 5 units, and that goes there. 2's in the hundreds column, so that's 200, so we'll put that here. 5 is in the tens column, and we have 0 in the ones or the units column. Now it's 10 times 200, and the rule for multiplying a whole number by 10 is you simply add a 0. So let's write 200 down, and we add a 0, so that becomes 2000. 10 times 50, so we write 50 down and add a 0, and 10 times 0. So anything times 0 is always 0. Now we're moving on to the 5. 5 times 200. So what I'm going to do is hide these 2 zeros. So it's 5 times 2, which is 10. And I simply add these 2 zeros. 1, 2. Now it's 5 times 50. Hide the 0. 5 times 5 is 25. And we add the 0. And finally it's 5 times 0, which is 0. My next step is to add all these numbers. I'm going to ignore these 2, so I just need to add these 4. So it's 2000. Add 500. Add 1000. Add 250. 0 add 0 add 0 add 0 is simply 0. This column is 5. 5 add 2 is 7. And 2 add 1 is 3. As before, 1, 2, 3, comma. So this is our thousands. So it's 3,750. Now I'm going to try this in column multiplication. So I'll write 250 at the top, multiplied by 15 at the bottom. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 5 is 25. So I'll put the 5 down in this column and I carry the 2 over to the next column. And now it's 5 times 2. And 5 times 2 is 10. Plus this 2 we've carried over is 12. So I'll put the 2 down in this column and I'll carry the 1 over to the next column. I can write that straight down because we've finished with that calculation. So now I'm going to move on to the 1. So let me remove these because it'll make it easier to see. Now before I do 1 times 0, I'm going to put a helper 0 or a placeholder. It makes the calculation much easier. So I simply have to do 1 times 0 is 0. Put that in the next column. 1 times 5 is 5. And finally 1 times 2, which is 2. So now I need to simply add these two numbers. 0, that's 5. 2 add 5 is 7. And 1 add 2 is 3. As before, 1, 2, 3. This is our thousands, so it's 3,750 as before. So we know in 1 minute the machine has poured 3,750 milliliters. Now the question is, how do we go from milliliters to liters? So milliliters to liters. We follow that arrow and it's asking us to divide by 1,000. So we need to divide this number by 1,000. So the decimal point is always to the right of the ones or the units column. So whenever you divide a number by 1,000, because you've got 1, 2, 3 zeros, you move the decimal point back 3 places. 1, 2, 3. So this decimal point jumps to here. So I'm going to remove this. Now we can ignore this 0. So the machine has poured 3.75 liters in that 1 minute. And let me just point out the spelling. In the UK, we use litre like this. And in America and some other countries, they use the word litre like this. ER instead of RE. And this is the spelling that we want.